The story begins late at night, at exactly 2 a.m., when something unusual happened inside a locked garage that nobody expected. This was not just any garage. It belonged to Mat Armstrong, a name that millions of car lovers now recognize. But at that moment, what was hidden behind those closed doors was more important than fame. According to what was later revealed, the discovery made inside that garage left even his own father completely silent. Imagine that for a second. A man who had spent years teaching his son about engines and tools, suddenly having no words at all. That alone tells you how serious the situation must have been. The whispers around this moment suggested that Mat had been hiding something extremely valuable, something worth even more than his own house. This was not just about money, though it was about time, effort, and sacrifice, because whatever was inside that garage had cost him nearly 7 years of hard work and savings. And it didn't stop there. Security cameras captured everything that happened that night, and those recordings were said to have potential to change his entire career. But here's where things become even more mysterious. There were reports that Mat was not alone. Someone else had entered that garage, and what happened during the next 47 minutes would later be described as a turning point, something that changed everything moving forward. Before diving deeper into that strange night, it is important to understand who Mat Armstrong really is, because without knowing his journey, this moment would not carry the same weight. Mat is not just another YouTuber showing cars on camera. He is someone who built his entire life from risk, failure, and determination. Born in Leicester, England, he had no idea as a child that he would one day become famous for rebuilding some of the most expensive damaged cars in the world. In fact, his early life was very different. His father, Tony Armstrong, tried to teach him mechanical skills when he was young, show him how engines worked and how to fix things. But like many kids, Mat was not interested at that time. Instead, he was focused on BMX biking, spent his days practicing tricks and dreaming of becoming a professional rider. Life seemed to be moving in that direction until one unfortunate accident changed everything. During an important BMX event, a failed trick caused a serious shoulder injury, one that refused to heal properly. It kept dislocating even during sleep, making it impossible for him to continue his BMX career. For many people, that kind of moment could have ended everything. But for Mat, it became the beginning of a completely new path. The lessons his father had once tried to teach him suddenly became useful. He started working small jobs, doing anything he could earn money, while slowly getting back into cars. At the same time, his YouTube channel existed, but barely. It had very little activity, and almost no one was watching. It looked like just another forgotten channel on the internet. But deep down, something was building, something that would later turn into a massive success story. And that is why the event inside that garage at 2 a.m. feels so important, because they're connected to years of struggle, risk, and growth that most people never see. The turning point in Mat Armstrong's life did not come from a perfectly planned decision or a safe opportunity. Instead, it came from a situation that most people would see as a problem. One night, his girlfriend was driving her Audi TT home when she crashed it. The damage was enough for the insurance company to declare the car a total loss, meaning it was no longer worth repairing in their eyes. For most people, that would have been the end of the story. The car would be taken away, scrapped, and forgotten. But Mat saw something different. Where others saw a broken vehicle, he saw a chance. With very limited money and no guarantee of success, he decided to buy the damaged Audi TT for just £600. It was a bold move, especially for someone who was already struggling financially and still trying to figure out his future. But this decision would quietly change everything. With no real plan, no professional camera setup, and no big expectations, Mat picked up a simple GoPro and started recording the process of fixing the car. At that time, his YouTube channel was still very small, and he did not expect many people to watch. The videos were raw, unpolished, and sometimes messy, but they were real. He showed every mistake, every challenge, and every small win along the way. Slowly, something surprising began to happen. Viewers started to connect with his honesty. They were not just watching a car being repaired. They were watching a person learning, struggling, and improving step by step. Some viewers even began helping him by suggesting solutions and helping him find parts. It turned what could have been a lonely project into a shared journey. That Audi TT became more than just a car. It became the foundation of everything Mat would later build. Around the same time, he was still working different jobs to survive, including food delivery and small mechanical work. Money was tight and progress was slow. His YouTube uploads were not consistent because he could only work on videos when he had free time. But even with these challenges, the seed had been planted. Mat had discovered something important. He realized that people were interested in real stories, not perfect ones. As time passed, YouTube eventually started paying him small amounts of money. It was not much at first, but it was enough to show him that this could become something bigger. This is where his mindset began to shift. Instead of treating YouTube as a side hobby, he started taking it seriously. He focused more on his content, tried to upload more regularly, and began thinking long-term. Then came a moment that would test his courage in a completely different way. During the COVID-19 pandemic, like many others, Mat faced uncertainty when his job at a car dealership was paused. He suddenly found himself at home, with savings that he had been carefully keeping for a house deposit. This was supposed to be a safe and responsible step in his life, something that would give him stability. But instead of following that safe path, Mat made a risky decision that many people around him probably did not understand. He used that money to buy a damaged Bentley Continental GT for around £10,000. It was a huge gamble. If it failed, he could lose everything he had saved. But if it worked, it could take his YouTube career to another level. This decision shows something very important about Mat's personality. He was willing to take risks where he believed in an idea, even when the outcome was uncertain. As he started working on the Bentley and sharing the process online, the response was much bigger than anything he had experienced before. The videos gained millions of views, and for the first time, it felt like his hard work was truly paying off. Sponsorships started coming in, his income increased, and the dream that once seemed impossible was slowly becoming real. Looking back at that locked garage at 2 a.m., it becomes clear that whatever was hidden, there was not just a physical object. It represented years of risk, learning, and determination. It was proof of how far he had come from those early days of uncertainty. When he was simply trying to figure out his place in the world, ace Mat Armstrong's confidence grew. So did the scale of his projects, and with each new build, he moved further away from the small garage experiments that once defined his early days. The success of the Bentley project gave him not only financial support, but also something even more important: belief in his own ability to take on bigger challenges. This is where his journey started to change from a simple story of survival into something much larger, something that began to attract attention from across the automotive world. One of the key moments that pushed him forward came when Richard Hammond, a well-known figure from shows like Top Gear and the Grand Tour, reacted to one of Mat's rebuild videos. This was not just a small mention. It brought a wave of new viewers who trusted Hammond's opinion and were curious to see what made this young YouTuber worth noticing. Suddenly, Mat was no longer just uploading videos for a small group of loyal fans. He was now being watched by a global audience, and with that came both opportunity and pressure. His subscriber count began to rise quickly, moving from slow and steady growth to something much faster and more intense. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, Mat used this moment to push even harder, taking on projects that many people would consider impossible or too risky. Cars that had been written off by insurance companies, vehicles that looked completely destroyed, and machines filled with complex electronics all became part of his new reality. Each project carried a financial risk, often involving tens or even hundreds of thousands of pounds, but also carried the potential for massive rewards if the content performed well. One example of this was his work on high-end performance cars like the Porsche 718 Cayman S and the Porsche 911 GT3, both of which required careful planning, expensive parts, and a lot of patience. These were not simple repairs. They were detailed rebuilds that demanded both skill and creativity. At the same time, Mat continued to show his personality through the videos. He did not try to act like a perfect expert. Instead, he openly admitted when he did not know something, and he was not afraid to try unusual solutions, even if they did not always work the first time. This honesty became one of his strongest qualities, because viewers felt like they were learning alongside him rather than just watching a professional at work. As his projects became more ambitious, the financial side of his work also became more complex. He was no longer dealing with small amounts of money. Some builds required hundreds of thousands of pounds just to get started, and unexpected problems could easily increase the cost even further. This meant that every decision had to be carefully considered, from buying a car to sourcing parts and planning the rebuild process. At times, it must have felt like walking a tightrope, where one mistake could lead to a huge loss. But Matt found ways to manage these risks, often by turning the projects into engaging content that attracted millions of views and generated enough revenue to cover the expenses. This balance between risk and reward became a key part of his success. And yet, despite all the growth, all the attention, and all the expensive cars, there was still something deeply personal about his journey. His father, Tony Armstrong, remained an important part of the process, often appearing in videos and helping with difficult repairs. Their relationship added a layer of authenticity that viewers could relate to, because it showed that behind all the success, there was still a strong connection to where it all started. Friends and family also played a role, turning what could have been a lonely career into something shared and meaningful. When thinking back to that mysterious moment in the locked garage, it becomes easy to understand why it felt so significant. It was not just about a single event. It was about everything that led up to it. The risks, the growth, the challenges, and the determination to keep moving forward no matter what obstacles appear along the way as the scale of Mat Armstrong's projects continue to grow. So did the risks, and nowhere was this more clear than in the builds that push him to his limits both financially and mentally. These were not simple repair jobs anymore. They were massive undertakings involving some of the most expensive and complex cars in the world. One of the most talked about projects was a rebuild of a heavily damaged Rolls-Royce Wraith that had previously belonged to Marcus Rashford. This car was not just valuable because of its price, which originally ranged between £700,000 and £750,000, but also because of its unique modifications by Mansory. When Matt purchased the car at auction for £184,000, it seemed like an incredible deal at first. However, that excitement quickly turned into a difficult reality when the car arrived and refused to start, despite being listed as run and drive. This moment alone could have discouraged many people. But for Matt, it was just the beginning of another challenge. After struggling to figure out the issue, he eventually received help in the form of a special theft protection code that allowed the car to start. But solving that problem only revealed how complicated and expensive the rebuild would become. Mansory parts were extremely costly, far beyond what most people would expect. Simple items like car mats could cost thousands of dollars, and larger components, such as exhaust systems and body parts, came with prices that made every decision feel like a serious financial risk. At one point, Matt even decided that buying an entire second Rolls-Royce as a donor car made more sense than purchasing individual parts, which says a lot about how expensive these components really were. The rebuild process itself was filled with unexpected problems. Electrical systems did not behave as expected. The suspension created issues with uneven ride height, and small details like panel alignment required endless adjustments. Matt and his team spent months working through these challenges, sometimes using creative methods just to make parts fit or function properly. There were moments of frustration, times when progress felt slow, and situations where mistakes had to be corrected at additional cost. Yet, this is exactly what made the content so engaging for viewers. They were not watching a perfect, smooth restoration. They were watching real struggles and real solutions. Eventually, after months of effort, the car was completed, but the story did not end there. The founder of Mansory, Mansory, saw the rebuild and invited Matt to bring the car to the company's headquarters in Germany. This invitation turned into another memorable journey as Matt drove the car across Europe, turning the trip into content that blended adventure with automotive passion. When he arrived, the car was inspected and several small issues were pointed out, including missing badges and minor imperfections. The car was then corrected overnight, bringing it closer to factory-level quality. This moment highlighted something important about Matt's journey. Even after months of hard work, there was always room for improvement, and learning never stopped. The total investment in the project reached a level where it became difficult to calculate an exact number, with estimates ranging widely depending on which costs were included. But in the end, the value of the project was not just in the money spent or earned. It was in the experience, the content created, and the connection with the audience. Around the same time, Matt also took on another extremely challenging project involving a damaged Lamborghini Revuelto, a car that represented the future of high-performance hybrid technology. This build introduced a new level of complexity due to its advanced systems, including multiple electric motors and strict safety controls that prevented the car from starting after the crash. Once again, Matt faced a situation where official support was limited, and the path forward was unclear. He had to experiment, learn, and sometimes struggle through trial and error just to make progress. The costs continued to rise, with parts alone reaching extremely high figures, and each step required careful planning. At one point, the car briefly came to life, only for new issues to appear shortly after, showing how unpredictable these projects could be. Eventually, with the help of experts and access to proper facilities, the system was unlocked and the car was brought back to working condition. However, despite the success, Matt later admitted that the car did not hold the same emotional value for him. It was too expensive, too complex, and too stressful to truly enjoy. This honest reflection showed another side of his personality, one that was willing to admit when something did not feel right, even after achieving what many would consider a major success. Looking back again at that mysterious moment in the garage, it becomes even clearer that whatever was hidden there was not just a single object or secret. It was a symbol of everything Matt had built, the risks he had taken, and the challenges he had overcome, all leading to a point where even the smallest moment could carry a much deeper meaning. Beyond the stage in his journey, Mat Armstrong was no longer just a YouTuber fixing damaged cars in a garage. He had become a full-scale content creator running what could almost be described as a business empire built around risk, storytelling, and mechanical skill. His videos were no longer short clips or simple rebuilds. Instead, they had evolved into long, detailed episodes, often running close to an hour, where each project unfolded like a series. Viewers did not just come to see the final result. They came to experience the entire journey, from the moment a broken car was purchased to the final test drive. This style of content kept people engaged because it felt real and unpredictable. Unlike traditional television shows, where everything is carefully planned and controlled, Matt's videos carried a sense of uncertainty. Sometimes things worked perfectly, but often they did not, and that unpredictability became part of the appeal. He openly described himself as someone who was still learning, someone who was not afraid to make mistakes, and this honesty helped him build a strong connection with his audience. Behind the scenes, however, the reality was far more demanding than it appeared on camera. Managing multiple high-value projects at the same time required not only technical knowledge, but also serious financial planning. At one point, he had hundreds of thousands of pounds tied up in different builds, with each project depending on successful content performance to justify the investment. This created a constant pressure to deliver videos that would attract views and generate revenue. His income came from several sources, including YouTube ad revenue, sponsorship deals with automotive brands, merchandise sales, and affiliate marketing. Together, these streams created a system where the success of each video directly influenced his ability to continue working on future projects. In addition to his main channel, Matt expanded his presence by creating additional platforms to reach different audiences. He launched a second channel for extra content, a short-form channel to capture attention on platforms that favor quick videos, and even a Spanish-language channel to connect with viewers beyond English-speaking regions. This expansion showed a clear understanding of how digital content works and how important it is to adapt to different formats and audiences. At the same time, his personal life remained closely connected to his work. His father, Tony Armstrong, continued to play a key role, often appearing in videos and helping with complex repairs. Their relationship added depth to the content, showing not just technical skill but also family support and shared passion. His girlfriend Hannah also remained part of the journey, along with friends who frequently joined in to help or simply be part of the experience. This sense of community made the videos feel more personal and relatable, turning viewers into loyal followers who felt connected to the people behind the projects. Despite the success, the risks never truly disappeared. Every new car purchase carried uncertainty, and every rebuild had the potential to go wrong. Matt had to constantly balance his desire to take on exciting challenges with a need to manage financial risk. Some projects resulted in profit, while others only broke even or even led to small losses. However, Even when the financial outcome was not perfect, the content itself often made up for it by generating views and strengthening his brand. This approach showed a different way of thinking, where success was not measured only by the final profit from a car, but by the overall value created through content and audience engagement. As the hours passed on that night at 2 a.m., inside the locked garage, it becomes easier to imagine what that moment might have represented. It was not just about a hidden object or secret discovery. It was about the weight of everything Matt had built over the years, the responsibility of maintaining that success, and the pressure of knowing that one wrong move could change everything. The silence from his father, the presence of another person, and the recorded footage all point toward a moment filled with tension and importance, a moment with a past, present, and future seem to come together in one place in the end. When you step back and look at the full picture, that mysterious night inside the locked garage begins to feel less like a single shocking event and more like a powerful symbol of everything Mat Armstrong has gone through to reach this point in his life. The idea that something hidden, something valuable, and something potentially career-changing was sitting behind those closed doors at 2 a.m. reflects the kind of pressure and responsibility that comes with the level of success he has achieved. Over the years, Matt has built his reputation on taking risks that most people would avoid, investing huge amount of money into damaged cars with no guarantee of success, and sharing every part of that journey with millions of viewers. That kind of openness creates trust, but it also creates expectations. People are always watching, always waiting to see what happens next, and that means every decision matters. The presence of another person in the garage that night adds another layer to the story, suggesting that whatever happened was not just personal, but involved outside influence as well. Whether it was a collaborator, a friend, or someone connected to his work, the fact that they were there during such a critical moment makes the situation even more intense. The 47 minutes that followed, captured on security cameras, can be imagined as a period filled with tension, uncertainty, and possibly decisions that could shape the future of his career. Even without knowing every detail, it is clear that moments like these do not happen in isolation. They are built on years of effort, sacrifice, and determination. Matt's journey from a young BMX rider with big dreams to a globally recognized automotive content creator is a story of adaptation and resilience. When his original path was taken away due to injury, he did not give up. Instead, he found a new direction and slowly built something meaningful from the ground up. His father's early lessons, which once seemed unimportant, became the foundation of his skills. His willingness to take risks, like spending his house deposit on a damaged Bentley, showed a level of belief that many people struggle to have, and his ability to turn failures into engaging content allowed him to stand out in a crowded digital space. At the same time, his story highlights a reality that success is rarely simple or easy. Behind the views, the expensive cars, and the growing subscriber count, there are long nights, financial pressure, and constant uncertainty. Managing multiple projects, dealing with unexpected problems, and maintaining a connection with an audience all require a level of effort that is not always visible. The garage, in this sense, becomes more than just a physical space. It represents a place where ideas are tested, where risks are taken, and where the line between success and failure can be very thin. That is why the image of that locked garage at 2 a.m. is so powerful. It captures a moment where everything feels uncertain, where the outcome is not yet clear, and where the future could change depending on what happens next. As viewers and readers, we are naturally drawn to these kinds of moments because they remind us that even the most successful people face challenges and unknowns. Mat Armstrong's story shows that progress often comes from taking chances, learning from mistakes, and continuing to move forward even when the path is unclear. And while the exact details of that night may remain partly hidden, the meaning behind it is clear. It represents a journey of someone who refused to stop when things went wrong, who turned setbacks into opportunities, and who built a life based on passion, hard work, and the courage to take risks.